So I'm Jeremy, and I own half of the Wunderkammer Curiosity Shop here in Honesdale. I'm a oddity dealer, oddity collector, preservation artist, and overall just, kind of somebody that really enjoys history and, the peculiar, the strange, the unusual. When I was young, I always had a penchant for the spooky, the dark, the strange. And I tell this story a lot. There was an old TV show called Are You Afraid of the Dark that I was obsessed with when I was a kid. And one of the episodes there was a creepy doctor in the middle of the woods in a little cabin. And he holds up a hand in a jar. And it just stuck with me. Like, it was weird and unusual, but like it wasn't scary to me. It was interesting. And from there, I grew wanting to know more about the human condition, anatomy, history, everything that went around how we got to where we are here today, So like that's where it all began for me. Being a collector and a dealer for so many years, the next evolutionary step for me was to open a brick and mortar business. And the Wunderkammer was a many-year dream in the works. Because it's not like any other business. It's not like we have wholesale companies where we can just, buy things on the fly. You have to hunt, you have to pick, you have to track down these artifacts and these antiques. And, so when the time came and I was ready, it was time to just, take the extra leap. And I opened up a full-blown brick and mortar store that I hope will be here for many years to come. I chose to open the shop here in Honesdale, actually because of my future wife. She's grew up near here. It was always her dream to open a shop in Honesdale. I actually was gonna open in Gettysburg. And when we got together, it was just kind of molded together. We moved closer to her family, and she introduced me to this town, and I'd never heard of it before. And it was a really quaint little town. It was one of the last little towns that I've ever been to, and it just has a great tourist draw. It has a great foot traffic. It's very close-knit community, and I just fell in love with it. So like we decided to open up here, and we've been here going on 4 months now, and it's been great. Like I really love the feel of the area. It's rich in history. It has a lot of paranormal crews that come by to places like the Wayne Hotel. There's Irving Cliff, which was named after Washington Irving, who wrote The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. It's the birth of the American Railroad. So there's a lot going on here that has a lot of draw, and I feel fits a small town curiosity shop.
I'm Sophie May. I am Jeremy's fiance. I am the co-owner of the Wunderkammer Curiosities Shop. I am a model, and I am a human blood painter. Blood painting is the art of painting using either your own blood or someone else's blood, preferably human blood. I have been painting for probably about 4 years now. Jeremy was actually a blood painter before me, and he taught me his craft. When I first started, I would say my interest started when I was very, very young, but I didn't know how to acquire blood. So as I grew older, I learned how to use venipuncture to, take specific amounts, specific vials, depending on what size of painting that I was doing. And Jeremy taught me how to layer that correctly and to make use of the way that blood dries, the way that it darkens, the way that it layers. And ever since then, it's sort of become almost a chase of how to do it better. So this piece that I just did recently, I finished it up last night, is of Elizabeth Bathory, who was a countess in Hungary. She was known for bathing in the blood of children because she believed that it would create immortality through beauty, that bathing in blood would somehow preserve her skin and at the time, she was obviously considered beautiful, as that was the beauty standard, but needless to say that didn't work, and she is renowned as being a horrific serial killer.
Everything in the shop comes from all over the world. Some things we do in-house, like diaphanizations. We do prepare our own wet specimens, we do skull cleaning, but the majority of antiques are bought from anywhere from Europe and the UK to just us picking up and down the East Coast. So it's, even when we're not working, we're working. So this taxidermy king cobra is a female. The largest king cobra ever recorded was between 18 and 19 feet. She passed during egg laying or live birth, I'm not sure which, but she got all twisted up inside and it caused her death. So she was taxidermied in the 70s, and at the time of her death, she was 16 feet 3 inches. That being said, you know, that the largest king cobra ever recorded was between 18 and 19 feet in 1937. Through all my research, this is the largest king cobra taxidermy I can find. So she's really interesting, and she's kind of like a shop mascot now. People have come from states away actually just to come get a picture next to her, so that's been pretty cool. But the idea that they can stand up and look a grown man in the eyes is absolutely terrifying. And she's intimidating. The strangest, most unsettling item I'd say in the shop would be the Fiji cannibal tooth necklace. The cannibal tooth necklace was from the island of Fiji. It came into the country in a port in Maine in 1901. And in their culture at the time, they would take teeth from their victims and they would put them on a necklace, and the chief would wear that. And the more teeth on the necklace, the more powerful the chief. You can see the amount of teeth on here, which means that particular tribe was very fierce. And the chief for that tribe with this many teeth, he would have been considered almost godlike status. You'll find these online a lot under, you know, Fiji tooth necklace, things like that. And they're usually made out of primarily molars because molars just look more impressive. Those are almost always just Taurus pieces, just somebody stringing up teeth. Where this one is definitely authentic. A lot of lateral incisors, canines. You can see the wear on the teeth from their diet. So it's very old and you know, very dark, but it's definitely one of the most impressive things I've ever seen as far as history goes. And it's probably my favorite piece in the shop. It is not for sale. I just have it here. I keep it in the case. I love when people walk in and they ask about it because I get to teach them something. So it's definitely my favorite.
My favorite piece in the shop is what's called a Bazenga warrior. In the 17th century, the slaves in Haiti were controlled by the French, and they revolted, and it became a secret sect of voodoo that accomplished freedom, basically. And though there is much mystery around Haitian Bazangos, it is very feared and very coveted as protectors to the voodoo and Haitian tribes. And we have what's called a Bazenga warrior, which is a torso with a human skull encased inside, and there are mirrors attached to the chest and on the arms, and that is the way that the spirits within this body can see out into the world.
The collecting of human remains goes back hundreds of years. Personally, I think everyone has their own reason for it. Some people collect as a reminder of the fact that they're alive. Other people collect just for that creepy factor. Some people, like myself, I collect because I enjoy the medical history, the science of pathologies, and certain cultures that use remains in their, you know, religion or their beliefs. Those cultures that have died out, like I like preserving that, making sure that it's around to teach other people the history of certain cultures. So everyone has their own reasoning for it. I don't fault anybody for whatever their reason is, and I don't think anything's necessarily wrong with it. I think a lot of the pushback on collecting and what makes it so strange to some people is just, you know, the norms of society. You know, a lot of it is religious cultivation of beliefs of what's moral or ethically, you know, okay. And even then, you know, ethics are subjective. You know, one person might be like, oh, I'll collect a skull because I know where it came from. And, you know, someone else would be like, well, I know this skull is super old, so that's all I need to know. So like ethics and morals, you know, depend on the person. But again, I don't think anything's wrong with it necessarily, as long as you're being respectful of the dead. The way society views death now is very different than it did just 100 years ago. In the Victorian era, into the Edwardian era, it was very embraced. Memento mori was a thing, which means, remember you must die. Victorian hair art, after somebody died, they would take their hair, make jewelry out of it, things like that. And that was a way of appreciating death and appreciating the person that had passed. Now it's more, I believe more people are scared of death now than ever. I think it's become very taboo because it makes people uncomfortable. And there's reasons for that. The world has gotten far more violent in the last 50, 60, 70 years. There has been more death. You have the internet, you have television now, so it's always in your face. And while we've come to accept some of these things we see, it also makes us realize just how prominent death is in our world. And I think that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And people now view death as something either very sacred and, so they don't want anything past the funeral to think about, or they just kind of ignore it and go about their day-to-day lives. And when they're faced with it, it makes them very uneasy. My relationship with death and dying, I really don't think I have one. I accept the fact that everyone and everything is going to pass on. I personally don't give it much thought. I just live by the day. I try to enjoy my day. I enjoy my loved ones. I try to enjoy my experiences. And, I don't know when those experiences are going to come to an end, so I try not to focus on it, or else you'll just go insane.
My personal relationship with death, I'd say, is a little bit different than most people's. Since probably about 6 years old, my first thoughts of consciousness were that I wasn't meant to be here, that I preferred the other side, if you will. I delved into the supernatural, the paranormal, demonology, and just the idea of death itself. It was more enticing to me than life. I am someone that very much believes in the scientific world, and I believe that the paranormal can be tied into that equally as much as medicine or physics or any of the other sciences. I believe that when we die, matter is neither created nor destroyed, and we are dispersed into the universe, and the pieces of us become other things. I believe some of those pieces can hold more fragments of consciousness than others, and in a sense, reincarnation to me can be a fragment of that can become somebody or something else and have this remembrance for a previous life.
What I think happens when we die, because I'm not particularly religious, I don't assign myself to any particular dogma, but I personally believe that much like everything else in our physical world, there's a recycling, there's a food chain, as it were, an ecosystem. And being that there's enough science to prove that we have an electrical system in our bodies overlaying our nervous system, that's energy, which I think some people would call a soul. I feel that when our physical body dies, that energy gets dispersed back into the atmosphere, into a realm that we can't see with the naked eye, much like you can't really see electricity. And I think if I had to make an assumption, I would think that some paranormal activity that people have recorded is either leftover energy or an abundance of energy that's just kind of moving around, and our consciousness is linked to it to some degree. And I think over time that consciousness may fade as the energy fades, which is why you see reports of, spirits that are doing a singular action over and over and over again. They're kind of just on repeat, because that's what's left of their consciousness attached to that energy. That's my personal theories on it.
When I die, I would like to be remembered for the art that I created and for the mother that I was. I believe immortality is in what you create and the longevity that holds throughout history. And the more that you accomplish in this life that has a tangible attachment to it, writing a book, doing a painting, accomplishing anything in law or any kind of medical goal or anything that furthers or changes something in society, that would be how I would like to be remembered.
I'd like to be remembered when I'm gone, first and foremost as, a good father, a good partner, a good spouse, And I hope that some of the things I've done in the world, you know, of education and preservation and things like that are remembered and have done something for somebody else. Like that somebody could take something I did or I learned and tried to teach, and they could learn from it too, and hopefully even teach another generation. That's all I'd really want out of everything I do.